All right, everyone, we have to talk about Texas right now because a student was expelled from a school in Katy for sitting out the Pledge of Allegiance. Apparently, it was a big thing. And they're like, well, we've got a law against that. You have to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Long story short, I oppose this. I think the pledge should be 100% voluntary, and in most schools, of course, it is, specifically because of this. The concept of allegiance goes beyond going through the motions and putting your hand over your heart and saying the actual pledge or just standing there or whatever. That's just sort of a ritualized thing. It's very Romanesque in the most literal sense. The original salute of the pledge was the Bellamy salute, the straight arm salute, usually, associated with Nazism, which is really, really funny. It's actually Roman in form. But the concept is patriotism and allegiance. But the thing is, a person can stand for the pledge and not really meet it, not care, or a person could be sitting it out. They could be homesick or whatever, but they've got, allegiance or whatever. I would further say in the modern era, especially in the wake of 9/11, a lot of people conflate loyalty to the government with actual allegiance to the country. Now, I would say allegiance to the founding concepts and principles of this nation is the most important. One of those is individualism, the concept that a person shouldn't be forced to do something like this against their will. If they're not feeling it, who cares? Here's the thing. If there's no victim, there's no crime. A person sitting out the pledge does not create a victim. If other kids are like, well, shame on you, fucking that doesn't make them victims. They can oppose it without having been victimized. Just like this student here, by being, sort of having people look sideways at her, probably did, is not being victimized just by being ridiculed for sitting the pledge out. But when you expel that student from the school, it's certainly different. Texas is a weird state because it can get so many things totally right, and then something like this can happen, where you have a situation where the constitutional rights of that student are clearly being violated. The law itself is clearly in violation of the Constitution, by the way, for the same fucking reasons. Why, if a student were to come to school wearing an NRA shirt, no, they shouldn't be kicked out or suspended or told to change it. We've had situations like that. Yes, I believe that the concept of expressiveness, of speech, and of self-defense are extended to people below the voting age. Now, I happen to have that belief specifically because a lot of the people that were fighting in the Revolutionary War were not 18 at the time. By the way, I extend this to like alcohol and stuff. If there's no victim, there's no crime. Government should take a hands off. The school, as a tool of government, is inevitably going to lose this case. I can tell you that right now. This will be argued. The Texas AG is defending it. He's saying, well, I think that it's wonderful that we should force people to stand there with their hand over their heart for no apparent reason. It's like, okay, let's say that you physically forced this girl who wanted to sit out the pledge. Let's say that you physically grabbed her, forced her, had a person link arms with her on either side to force her to stand for the pledge. That doesn't indicate allegiance. That indicates you're trying to bully and victimize another person who ideologically opposes it in that situation. In fact, you're victimizing other people by making a big deal of it. Now, probably a lot of the people in the school probably didn't give a fuck, in all honesty. Then, of course, the student was black, so it becomes a partisan issue. Now, I've got to take umbrage a little bit here with some of the groups that are actually defending the student. You're trying to turn this into a racial thing or a political thing. This is not a political issue, or it shouldn't be. Just like the concept of the Second Amendment shouldn't be political, the Constitution should be beyond partisan bickering. Unfortunately, it's not. Unfortunately, Democrats and Republicans get together to tread on the Constitution on a constant basis. It's just they sort of pick and choose which parts they don't like, based on what they've been told by a bunch of fucking corporate masters, banksters, and other corrupt cronyists. It's basically what happens in this country. This student's rights were violated. She's being expelled from a public school for absolutely no purpose. Didn't distract anyone, didn't victimize anyone, simply said, hey, I want to sit the pledge out. So fucking what? We've gotten to the point where it's like people think that, it's unpatriotic if you sit out the pledge. So fucking what? That's not being unpatriotic. No, and most of the time people conflate loyalty to government with loyalty towards country and constitution. Anyway, the founding ideology, the founding principle of the country is individualism. Very rugged individualism, as in fucking don't tread on me in the most literal sense. You're trying to take, basically a socialized public school system, and all of a sudden you care about like the Constitution and apple pie and George Washington and shit by forcing people to stand for a pledge that doesn't even come from the original founding of the nation in the first place. So I think it's rather funny. It's sort of like when people are like, hey, we should not have God, in God we trust on our currency. People flip out and they act like George Washington was the one that dreamed up that motto. The original motto was mind your own fucking business and not so many words. Then we had e pluribus unum. It wasn't until the Eisenhower era, fairly recently in U.S. history, that it became in God we trust, but people act like it's sacrosanct. It's the exact same thing as the Pledge of Allegiance or any of this other stuff. It literally, the concept of pledging allegiance is a little bit eugenic in form. The idea is that if you go through the motions, you must be ingraining patriotism, but you're doing it in a very, very communal way, a very cookie-cutter style way that almost opposes the original individualism that this nation was founded on. It is very collectivist when you're doing that. I feel slightly uncomfortable with it myself. The concept of pledging loyalty to one's nation. What if the nation's government is totally wrong? What if the nation's ideological principles have strayed from its founding goal? What if your nation's being run by tyrants who deserve absolutely nothing but a bullet in the head? You've got all of these different problems, and I realize that a lot of the people that are like, well, sit out the pledge, kneel during the anthem and stuff, they've been propagandized too. They think that, the country's led by Hitler or something. I agree that they're wrong, but they should still have the right to do that. Yeah, I don't care if people in the NFL kneel. Just like they shouldn't care when ticket sales fall and they stop making money. But by the way, being a private entity unconnected with any sort of, what you would reasonably construe as an important public utility, I don't really give a fuck if they do force their players to stand during the pledge or not take the field or whatever. I don't care. It's a little bit different than Twitter or something. But here's the thing. I think that students should be afforded the rudiments of constitutional principles. If they want to defend themselves, it's like, you expel a student from school for defending themselves against a schoolyard bully or something. I would oppose that too. It's the same basic principle. Now, they're being victimized by a socialist school system. We've seen this time and time again. For the most part, it should be returned to states and municipalities. It shouldn't be federal education, number one. Number two, schools should not be empowered to do this sort of bullshit. It's just, I don't even like the idea of school uniforms. Or even some of the more draconian elements of school dress codes. It's like I never saw the point to them. Like, fucking who gives a shit? If someone's distracted, let them fucking deal with it. It's their fucking problem, not my fucking problem. That's about all. Peace out.